Do you have a never-ending to-do list that never gets done and makes you feel so overwhelmed and so inadequate at running your business? If that is you, this is what you need today. So, I want to talk to you about the fact that you're running your business in a way that makes it harder for you to succeed. And the reason I say this is because if you've got a never-ending to-do list, if you've got a to-do list that just has houses everything in one place, it's always going to make you feel overwhelmed. It's always going to make you feel like you're never succeeding. You're never getting that proper dopamine kick of achieving something. And that is so important when you run your own business because you don't have that support around you in a team, in like celebrations, in goals that are being met, in people saying, well done, this is really like a really great project you did, etc. So we want to break down every single thing in your business into a project. Nice and easy. Nice and easy. So if you're new around here, my name is Jackie Clark. I'm so excited to have you here. And I am a startup strategist. I help people start their businesses with less overwhelm and earn consistent income months. So let's get back to the video. Key things. When we're setting up our business, everything that we do should be run as a project. Okay? Because a project is a contained event. It is a start and a finish. It is a core set to-do list that you can move through and see progress. Most people, when they are new to online business, start loads of things and never actually complete or finish or finalize anything because they're so overwhelmed by everything, feeling like it's part of everything. Like it's just so overwhelming. And it might blow your mind, but I never write to-do lists in my business anymore, ever. I never write to-do lists. I don't have a running to-do list of everything that needs to be done because I will not ever get it done. I will feel overwhelmed and I will hide away from taking the action, which I don't want. That's not what business is supposed to be about. So instead, what we do is we look at how we can treat every single element of our business as a project. And once it is a project, the core idea of this project is to learn how to do the thing and then create a system to make doing it easier in the future so that you have a process to follow every single time. And I can use the podcast as an example of this. So, for those of you who don't know, I run a guest interview podcast. It's called The Diary of Discovery, and it interviews people about their healing journeys. Now, that is like an extra add-on to the business, and it's not a core, paid offer or any way that we make income. It's literally just like my art. It's like my passion project. And it was really important to me that this came out into the world, that it was super consistent, that we had really high quality guests, that we spoke about really important things, but also that I didn't take all of my time in order to make this thing possible. Because I was like, I run a business, I have a life. I don't want to spend every waking hour at my desk. So I have to make sure that this fits in. So when I set up the project, I was like, the project is we're going to start a podcast. So we made a list of what it takes to start a podcast. What do we need? What equipment do we need? What technology do we need? What intros, outros, music, like what are all the elements that we need in order to make this possible? And then we started ticking off those things. Okay, we've written the outro, we've written the intro, we've filmed them, we've chosen the music, we have written the biodynamic um, like block that goes after every episode. We have all of these things set up. We've got our branding done, we picked our name, like all of this stuff, like all of the things we had them like set up. Then once we had all of the core components set up, the next step was how do we make this a process so that every time we record a podcast, it's super easy. So we automate. Okay, this is literally my favorite thing to do. We automate. So we look at, okay, somebody books in, they get an automated message to say, thank you so much for booking in. Here's the recording link to come into the recording. Once they've been to that recording, I then have a process that says their name goes onto the list as to when their publishing like live date is going to be. I tell them that on the call, and then I tell them like 2 weeks before they'll be getting an email that gives them all of their social content, a link to their podcast episode to listen to in advance, and all of these different things. And then I've got a process where I've got templates for the social content. I've got templates for the write-ups that I do. And I've got Zoom set up in a certain way where it can automatically write transcripts for me. Like I've got all of these things set up, which means that the process of actually creating that podcast episode from start to finish is super simple. But when I first created the podcast, the project of building the podcast and building the system took me 6 to 8 weeks. It took me a period of time. And in that time, I recorded the first 6 weeks worth of content. So I had test runs at what would it take, what are the steps, what do I need to do, how do I need to do this? And now I can literally sit down and say, okay, I'm going to spend a day and I'm going to like edit and upload and do all of the promotionals and emails and everything for like 8 podcast episodes in a day quite easily. And that is the beauty of a system. Now, the really cool thing is that this project, this contained project, felt really, really good to do because I was going through the process and I was ticking off and saying, okay, we're doing this, we've done this, we've done this, we've done this. Now, we had 50 tasks, now we've got 20 tasks left. And then, we've only got like 3 things left we need to do. And then this thing is done and it's in the world and it is like perfect. And this is what I want you to think about. How do we contain our projects down so that we're not trying to do a million things at once? We're just focusing on one thing at a time. Now, this could be anything for you. So it doesn't have to be a podcast. If you're really, really new in the world of business, it could be building your first offer. That could be the first thing that you do. It could be creating a lead magnet to start getting people interested in what you're selling, or building your funnel as like a whole thing. It could be doing your website or starting regular social media posts. One of the things I did when Reels became a thing is I set myself a task. Okay, for 90 days, the thing we're going to be doing is Reels. We're going to be learning how. We're going to be looking at like, how do we make a system? How do we make this repeatable? How do we make sure that we get results? How do we make sure that it's easy to post? Because when I first started doing Reels, it literally would take me like 2 hours to post because I'd be faffing around with a video for ages and trying to figure out how to edit things and chop things and putting on captions and then finding hashtags and like going through this whole process. And now I'm like, actually, it's super easy. It's super simplified. I've got my step-by-step process as to how I get a reel out into the world in minutes, literally like 7 minutes. I can get a reel out into the world. And I've got 150 hooks. 150 hooks that are literally sitting there ready to go. I have got a template for how to write social content to make it easy. So I don't have to think about it. I can sit down and be like, this is the template, fill in the template, like follow the process. And it becomes so easy to go through this process because I did the project. I set up the thing. I made it work for me. This could also be something like setting up your regular newsletters. So I did this with one of my clients, a little while ago, a couple of months ago now. We basically sat down and we said, okay, the project is newsletters every single week for the next year. We want to make sure that there's no inconsistency in how often people are hearing from you. We want to make sure that when you are in season, because she's got a season business, when you're in season, you don't just drop off the face of the earth and people just don't hear from you for 6 months and then suddenly you pop back up and you're talking to them all the time. Like, we want this consistency. So we sat down and we said, okay, we're out of season now. The project is 52 emails. So we went through and we said, okay, how do we template this up? How do we make this as simple as possible? How do we pick the core messaging areas? Set up the core topics that we're going to be talking underneath each of those core areas. Make sure we've got enough topics for the whole year. Make sure that we're pulling in stuff that you've already created, that you already know stuff about, like all of these things. And within 2 months, so within 8 weeks, she had written 52 emails, fully scheduled onto her onto her email platform, ready to go out to her clients. 52 emails, done. A whole month, a whole year's worth of newsletters, done. Like that. And now she has a process. Okay, so when she comes out of season again, she can literally sit down and she can run through that same process again and write new content that will speak to her audience, that will align with what she's doing, that will make sure that she is like has everything that she needs. But she can write another content for a whole nother year as soon as she comes out of season again. And this is the thing. If you turn every single thing into a project, suddenly it becomes so much easier for you to engage with and create because you're containing the idea. It's not just this ever long list of things that you have to do. You're containing and saying, how do I know and learn how to do this? How do I create a process or a system to make this easy for me to do in the future? And how do I contain and go from start to finish on one thing before I move on to the next thing? Because, as I said, so many people jump around, they flit, and they never finish anything. And the thing is that you always hear this, like, if you do 80%, you will get a smaller result. Whereas that last 20% of work, that last little 20% of work will give you 80% of the result. Because it's that last 20% that adds the like immense value. And that is where you want to be playing. Like that is where you want to be playing. So if you take, for example, this in August this month, we are running the Start and Scale Summit. Okay. So the Start and Scale Summit, in order for me to put that together, I had to sit down and create, okay, this is the project. The project is we want to run this summit. At the top of the list, it is choosing the dates, finding all of the speakers. I was so specific that I wanted 19 female speakers who are all super successful in the area that they teach, that are having success in their business, six-figure coaches, people that are living the life that they say they are creating for their customers. So people who really have the results. So we went through this process. I found all of those speakers and I coordinated all of that information, got this page built. And once the page was built, like I had already spent 2 whole weeks making graphics, getting all the speakers together, emailing back and forth, jumping on calls with people, getting all of the information that I needed from like 19 different people, getting everything into one place, putting it all together, getting it all into, a page that said, this is what you can sign up, this is what you can do. And in that process, like by the time I actually put that page out live, it would have been so easy for me to be like, oh, okay, I'm done. The work is done. The work is done. The project is done. All is good. But actually, the project wasn't just to create the summit. The project was to have a successful summit. Okay. And a successful summit means we have people signed up to it. And the only way we get people signed up to it is if we do the social media piece. So I was sitting there and I was like, okay, I've created everything. I've got all of the logistics done, and I could absolutely wipe my hands now and say, I've done. Here's the link. Everyone go and share this and, do your thing. But I thought, what is that final 20%? What does that final 20% look like? How do I systemize and process this and make sure that it is, a carbon copy of something that we can pick up and we can run next year? How do I make this something that people will look at and be like, wow, this is really professional. This is really incredible. So I sat down and I created a whole social media promotion pack. I said, these are all of the graphics. These are all of the reels that you can share. These are all of the emails, the written content. Like these are all of the social content. These are all the hashtags. These are all of the things that you're going to need in order to share this out into the world and get the biggest possible impact. And by doing this, I make it so easy for the speakers to show up. I make it so easy for the speakers to share this event and get it out into the world, and for the event to be a roaring success. And if the event is a massive success, that gives me a copy of what I can do next year. Okay, perfect. This year was a real success. Now we can go out, we can get bigger speakers, we can get bigger sponsors, because we've got a blueprint to say this is the project that we ran and this is the success that we had from start to finish. This is what we did. And this is what I want you to think about with every single element of your business. How do you go from start to finish of a project? How do you move through and make the task list really manageable, a start and end for a particular thing, not just an ever-growing list that never stops. How do you make sure that you're creating that long-term process, that it's not just a once off, like, oh, I'm going to do this thing and then the next time it cycles around, I'm going to have no idea what I did and I'm going to have to start all again from scratch? If you take the podcast, when I was going through and I was doing the process of editing a podcast from start to finish, like edit all the way out to social media, I was creating a checklist in the background to say, okay, first thing I did was I get the file from Zoom and I copy it down onto my computer and I open up the editing and I put it in and I put the intro in and I put the outro in and I check for, any editing gaps or anything that we need to edit out. And then I save that down. And then that's like the first thing. Tick, wow, brilliant. Then once it's saved down, then I need to open up the podcast platform and upload it. And then once that's in there, I need to put in this text and this caption, like auto caption. And then I need to put in this, like the transcript, and this is where I get that file. And then once that's done, I need to take that link and I need to put it into an email. And I literally wrote out this whole process that, one, I could give to a VA and say, can you please do this for me? Because the process is completely written out. Or I could not touch the podcast for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, because all of the content is there. And then I could step back into the podcast in 5 months' time and know exactly what I'm doing because the process is there and it exists. Okay. So I want you to think about this when you're working on something. How do you make everything in your business a project? So you're not just sitting with endless to-dos and an endless amount of work that you have to do that you're never ever going to achieve. How do you create a step-by-step process for that project in the future so it becomes easy and manageable and something that you can pick up and put down at ease? And then how do you make sure that you are starting and finishing a project? You're doing that last 20%, that bit where you feel like you have nothing left to give, you've got nothing left to, nothing in the tank, but you're saying, actually, I am going to go all in this moment. I am so secure in myself. I'm so powerful. I am so capable that actually, instead of saying, oh my gosh, I'm tired, I'm just going to stop right now, you say, I'm going to give it another 15 minutes to go all in and do that extra 20%, and then I'm going to call it a day. And then I'm going to go rest. And then I'm going to reap all of the rewards from this thing that I've done because I've done it to completion. And this is something that I really want you to think about. Now, I'm not talking about just pushing yourself until you burn out. Yeah, I'm not talking about doing project after project after project and killing yourself. But it's just in those moments where you think, I just, I don't think I can do one more social post, or I don't think I can write one more email, or I don't think I can, you know, open one more editor and like edit one more piece of content. You can. You are so incredible. You are so powerful. You are so made for this that actually in those moments you say to yourself, okay, just one more. And then you call it a day. I'll just do that 20%. I'll do that little bit extra. I will stand out and go further than anybody else because I believe in what I do, because I believe in the people that I serve, because I want to be of service. And this is something that is so incredible as you go through this process. Okay. So I want you to tell me in the comments below, what is the project that you're working on? What is the next project that you are going to work on in your business? What is the next focus of something that you're going to start and finish and create that step-by-step process to make your business easier in the long run? And I cannot wait to hear what it is below and see how many of you are working on the same things and what the community is going to be doing. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. I've been saying this a lot recently, but we have a large percentage of our subscribers that watch every single week but are not subscribed. And I promise you that subscribing to the channel means the literal world to me. It changes the algorithm and how YouTube shares my content. So I would really, really be grateful if you could subscribe to the channel, like this video, as I said, comment on what your next project is, and make sure that you tune in next week for our monthly meditation.